It's Spoilerin time. We don't take that lightly here at Cordkillers. And so we like to tell you exactly what we'll be spoilering at approximately when. In reverse order, we're going to finish today's episode by spoiling the season finale of season 6 of The Shield. That would be episode 10 of that season. Prior to that, again, going in reverse order, we'll be talking about True Detective, episode 7 of season 2. I don't remember the name. I barely remember the episode. Before that, we will talk about Rick and Morty, Morty Night Run, episode 2 of season 2. And before that, we will talk about the movie draft and the winter movie draft. But before that, I find it incumbent upon me at this point to introduce my co-host for Spoilerin Time, Mr. Brian Brushwood.
I'm glad you let it be a surprise that I was on the show and you didn't say right at the outset, because otherwise it would have spoiled this moment that I suddenly joined us right here. How's it going, Tom?
How you doing, Brian?
Oh, dude, I'm good. I'm a little bit wiped after Nerdtacular, but my body is exhausted, but man, is my emotional bank account overflowing with the joy and love and outpouring of support. As a matter of fact, our producer, the fabulous Bryce Neshcom Castillo, that was your first Nerdtacular, right?
Yeah. Yes, it was, and it was amazing.
Right on. I believe it. It's overwhelming.
The only thing lacking at Nerdtacular 2015 was oxygen. Had everything else you did.
Yes, no, I would agree. I could have used like 20 or 30% more oxygen the entire time.
I said on Twitter this morning, I felt like a Fremen at Jamba Juice breathing all this oxygen. Let's start off by looking at the end of my dreams, the 2015 movie draft. Congratulations, Cordkillers. Would this be have we had $1 billion in a summer movie draft?
We did the year of the Avengers, I believe, but this is as big of a story. In fact,
$1 billion from essentially 2 movies.
Yeah. Well, guess what? They were the 2 right ones, and we clearly undervalued Jurassic World. I mean, Time Machine. We can go back and think of a time.
Understating it to say we undervalued it. I mean. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, here's the amazing, and keep in mind, Jurassic World did so well. What was the total amount that Jurassic World did? Somebody wrote in
631,500,000 so far.
Right, and still making money. Somebody wrote in to point out that we already have a game happening right now that is our nightmare scenario for the winter movie draft, which is what if Star Wars makes more money than other people's entire slate. I believe Jurassic Park alone defeats all of us. Is that right?
So far, it does.
So every single slate made is not as good as that one movie, and that includes the Avengers, Insidious, and Spy slate. That is amazing.
Yeah, so here's the thing. If you want to be accurate, DTNS is not technically out of this yet. There's Fantastic Four yet to come out this week, the last movie of the movie draft, and then the rules say 4 weeks of additional gross for those movies. Let's say for some reason Minions and Jurassic World don't make any more money, which they will. But let's say they didn't. 510 million is what DTNS needs to do to catch up with Cordkillers, and they need to make that out of Vacation, Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation, and Fantastic Four. Mission Impossible's opening weekend was 56 million, so it's not going to hit 200 million, which it would have to. So this is essentially over, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly over for the first place, but I am curious whether or not, we're last or next to last or what.
Yeah, DTNS has been in last all but 1 week.
Yeah, man, it is astonishing.
And DTNS, by the way, everyone mocked me.
Oh, dude,
for saying I don't know that it's a lock.
It was clear to us that the game was broken. We've instituted new rules because the game was so obviously broken, and you were going to run away with it, and yet here we are with minutes left, and you're still in last place. That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't expect to be in last place. I expect Mission Impossible to nudge up above 100 million by the end of the 4 weeks for sure. Fantastic Four probably will make at least 90 million. So, that'll get me 160, 200 million. I would imagine I will be up above Amtrekker by that point. And that's it. That's as far as I'll get. I'll get above Amtrekker. I don't know that DTNS will still outgross Jurassic World. because Jurassic World keeps making money.
Gosh, that's so amazing. That's so amazing. All right. Well, the big controversy, of course, and it's great that we've had this example with Jurassic World, is because it will help us shape our decisions about how we're going to evolve the game for the winter movie draft. You want to take a moment to do some triage, talk about the letters that we got?
Yeah, let's talk about that. We got a bunch of various methods to split up percentages. I still think we do need to do that box score, Brian, of saying like how much is everything expected to make, and then how many movies do we have, and how many participants do we have, and is it fairly balanced? I think that's just a good exercise to do, but you can never get it exactly right. I said don't split the movie in two. Yeah, a bunch of people agree with me. A bunch of people agree with Brian. Probably more people agree with Brian on this one than me. Some people said just get rid of it. They're like, let's just not have Star Wars. But there was another one that I think we found even more entertaining. One guy said, Brian, everyone should have Star Wars.
We all get Star Wars. We're just competing to see how much more money we can make on top of it. And there was one guy that says, why not run it like a stock market? You could trade stuff after blah, blah, blah. And he goes on to describe essentially the Hollywood Stock Exchange, which is a fine site if you're into the tedium and you think it's a lot of fun to manage your retirement portfolio. I felt like it took all the joy out of it. So I would not like that.
Also, Brad, there's a site called Hollywood Stock Exchange if you want to do that. You can go do that.
Fair enough. Good point. However, we got a couple of people, and there were various variations of it that essentially said different ways to do the same thing. We'll read one or two emails that explain it. The first one I read that had this idea was from Micah, and it says, I have a suggestion to handle the movie draft Star Wars problem. And again, this isn't a Star Wars problem. This is a universal, there's an aspect of the game we had never considered before, which is what happens when everybody agrees that a movie's likely worth more than $100. Does it become just a race to see who can shout 100 first? Do you have like a trivia contest we were toying around with? But Micah says, have them bid on the percent of the gross they would take for that $100. Whoever bids the lowest percent wins. That way there's still a strategy on how low of the gross someone's willing to go, and the first person who shouts it out with 100 bid doesn't automatically win. I think Ty put it better. He says, I love the show and thanks for doing it. I agree with Tom that Star Wars shouldn't be broken up. It should be the first movie to be bid on so the draft doesn't become a few people. He says, I think a good solution would be after someone bids 100, bidding should continue, but switch to what percentage of the revenue from the movie the bidder would be willing to give up, but still think they could win the draft. So example, Tom bids 100 and then I bid 100. So now all of a sudden I bid 5%, meaning I'll pay that 100, but I'll take 95% of the gross. And then Tom says, you know what? I'll pay that same 100. I'll take only 90% of the gross. And then I'm like, no. I'll bid that same 100. I'll take 85% of the gross. And then Tom is a weasel and he's like, oh, I'll take 84% of the gross. And then finally I'm like, fine.
Why is that a weasel? That's a perfectly legitimate bidding maneuver that imaginary me just made.
Yeah, I think it's fine. The only thing I disagree with is that it should go first, because I think that's part of the strategy. I like our random draw ideal, and then so if you want to play for Star Wars, you got to hold on. You got to have $100 in your pocket so you could do that. And who knows? It may not even come to that because there may be some bargains people can't resist going for, and it may go for like $88 or something.
Yeah, I don't think it should. I think something's broken if Star Wars goes for $88, leaving you extra money. But the fact, if we do this, where, well, it could go for $88 or it could go for $100 for less. I don't know. I think it has to go for $100. I don't think there's any reason it wouldn't. And I do think that this is a nice, elegant way of saying, all right, how do we break that tie and make it not just be about the fastest person in the chat room gets $1 billion gross movie? You add another element to it. I love that.
Yep, I think it's pretty good. And the only way it breaks down is if 5 of the players can't resist buying something. I think what'll happen is early on in the random draw, there's going to be something going so cheap, somebody will make the decision to buy something. And once you've made the decision to buy something, you've also made the decision to not be part of the team competing for bidding for Star Wars, right? And as long as fewer than 5 people do that, you still have 2 people with $100 who will get to that face-off handicap level where they're taking reduced percentages of Star Wars, and then you have equilibrium. The only way it screws up is if everyone does something totally dumb.
If you
Yeah.
if you make it 100 where it has to be $100, shouldn't Star Wars be first then?
No, the problem is that violates the random. We're trying to make rules that scale to everything, and if it's a random draw, we can't say, well, everybody knows this one's going to be worth a lot, so let's put it at the front. So instead, what it is you play the game as usual, and as you bid, factored into your bids is knowing, I don't know, the next one might be Star Wars, and if I don't have 100, I won't be able to bid for Star Wars. So some number of those people, it will depress. Which is what we need. We need the prices for the other movies to be depressed so that people can collect more of them to get a slate that has a chance to take on Star Wars.
You know, I just thought of something that I don't necessarily think is better than this, but it just occurred to me. Real auctions will often put the most valuable items first so that people who are willing to bid on them don't hold back. Right,
like T2
you know,
says
in other
nobody
words,
will build before
sometimes
it.
people
That's absolutely a lie. Because the thing is if you could get
it's
100,
not a lie. I'm just saying.
No, not you. T2 is saying that nobody will bid before Star Wars. That's completely wrong because when it's $100 million movie and you make that decision to bid for $1 and everyone else sits there on their $100, it's like I'll take a whole bunch of movies at $1 for $100 million.
Yeah, well, no, what I'm saying is because in a real auction where you want to make money, you don't want people sitting around not bidding on things, right? You want them to bid on things. So they will often put the most valuable item first in order to get it out of the way so the people who don't get it are much more willing to spend after that. So that could be a legitimate way to decide to do all of our drafts, is to say we'll take the estimated value and put and front load them. I'm not sure that I love that idea or not. It just occurred to me.
Yeah.
We're not actually collecting the money from people. So
right. Our goal is not to maximize profits on selling off these movies. Our goal, so there's that. Anyway, great suggestions to everyone. Thanks for everybody emailing in to cordkillers@gmail.com. Man, do you want to take a moment and talk about Rick and Morty?
Let's talk about Morty Night Run, episode 2 of season 2. And I know, Brian, it's a different experience for me than you. I was watching this while making tea and carrying my laptop around and getting ready for Cordkillers. You've watched it like 3 times, 4 times?
Yeah, I watched it live, watched it when it leaked and the pirate thing, and watched it again, with the legit copy. This is the one that I want really bad. Like, Bonnie caught bits and pieces. I'm trying so hard to get her into the show, but she already hates cartoons with goofy voices, and my guess is she won't be able to stomach a cartoon in which the character belches mid-sentence all the time.
She's just not going to like the drool constantly on his lips.
No, those are the things that turned me off as well, and before I decided I loved them.
Also, this episode is full of fart jokes. Does Bonnie like fart jokes?
Not so much. I mean, she loves making them, not listening to them, though.
And also you get the amazing Jermaine Clement?
Jermaine or Jermaine, I don't know, but from Flight of the Conchords doing his best Bowie impression.
I like Jermaine in Hearthstone. He has a good dick.
Oh yeah, he does. He's got a great.
He's from New Zealand. That's my New Zealand accent.
Dick.
That was also a Rick and Morty type joke. Yeah, this is a great episode. It's an awesome episode. I feel like I need to watch it again. Like, it was so jam packed with stuff. I kept feeling like I was missing. Like there was probably some reference in the corner that I missed. But even so, thoroughly enjoyed it.
There are 2 aspects to this that I absolutely love. First of all, the whole Jerryland, the whole Jerry's being taken to daycare and then saying like, let's get out of here, and it's like I'm leaving, and it's like, okay, that was always allowed, and then realizing that at the end of the day he's a Jerry and that he needs to go back.
Oh man, that depiction of like being out on the streets and trying to buy a bus ticket and waiting at the bus stop, like I have felt that.
Yeah, dude. It's right? Like all of a sudden we're 12 and we're going to our uncle's house or whatever.
No, all of a sudden you're 32 in my game. I mean, I've been in an unfamiliar city, just kind of like looking around like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know where I am. This is scary. Like, yeah, I've totally felt that.
Yeah, and I also adored the doggone it! I was paying attention. I waited and now I've forgotten. There were 3 aspects. There was the whole escape.
There's the sort of game room. What the bits and chits.
Oh, yeah, bits and chits. yes. Dude, the game Roy, that's my favorite little one segment slice is him sitting down to playing the game of Roy, and he goes, and then getting criticized for the fact that he went back to the carpet store after beating cancer. And then just to make that point, he's like, that's the difference between you and me, Morty. I never go back to the carpet store. And then the next thing you know, he's taking Roy off the grid without
that was a great, there's that classic Star Trek's in the Next Generation episode, The Inner Light, where Picard lives an entire other person's life in simulation, and it's this beautiful thing. And they play it so straight when Morty is playing Roy, and you see him living the life, and it's so well done. You actually feel like, wow, he really lived that whole life. That's amazing. And then of course Morty comes out of it and he's not sure where he is anymore because it was so convincing. And then I love that when Rick sits down to play, now it's everybody gathered around watching him play a game. And even though his eyeballs are rolled back in his head, he's like, watch this, Morty, I'm taking him off the grid. And they're like, oh my God, you're totally taking Roy off the grid.
Yeah. That's so good, dude. It's dude, Blips and Chits is the best.
Yeah, and Roy 2 is there now, apparently.
Yeah. Was it Gary? Roy 2, Gary has just come out? Dave, that's what it was. Okay.
It's what else are you going to say? Amazing. They are the most convincing and sophisticated fart jokes in this episode that one can come across. I think.
What they do, and then he goes into like this whole pun thing. Whatever. It's awesome. Rick and Morty, you got to watch it. We're not friends if you don't. And to quote the fantastic Justin Robert Young, Rick and Morty are the best scripts that you'll never see on Doctor Who. It's amazing because like when I tried to get him to watch it, all it took was 5 minutes of him watching it. Goes, why didn't you just tell me that this is Doctor Who as a better, tighter comedy?
I do love that in this particular episode, the alternate universes, which are like harrowing plot points in earlier Rick and Morty's, are just like, oh yeah, we just all dropped the Jerrys here. Happens all the time. Not a big deal. They swap Jerrys at the end. Like, oh, is that your Jerry? I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't really matter anymore.
Lou in the chat says he hates Rick and Morty. It's not funny. It's okay, Lou. You could be wrong, and we could still love you. Shall we move on to True Detective, sir?
I guess.
Hey, man, True Detective.
Oh, I was waiting for the True Detective drop. That's right. Nothing ever drops in True Detective.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Last episode was good, and we were like, what a pity it took so long for this to really hit its stride. I watched this episode still confused about a lot of names. I haven't really taken the time to process and remember, the exact plots. I didn't really care about the original murder. I felt like some parts of it were gratuitous and so on. This may be my favorite episode of the series to date, or certainly of the season. And it made me sad that I felt like I just wished that the earlier stories were simple enough that I could have enjoyed them as much as I was enjoying this, because Vince Vaughn is absolutely electric. He is so worth watching. Detective Paul Woodrow, whatever his name is, his whole end sequence was riveting. Watching two broken individuals come together by being locked in the room together and hiding, and realizing with the consequences that she murdered a powerful person that is part of a cabal of powerful people that are going to demonize her and make sure to take her out. It was terrifying because he's casually saying like, so you realize we have to leave the country and we need new identities and stuff. And then meanwhile, to see Vince Vaughn's character just at his wit's end, figuring out that he's being screwed by one of his subordinates, that everything, the fix is in and the Russians are going to take over everything. And to see the calm clarity with which he sets fire to everything he has left for the one opportunity to screw over the people who are going to screw him over and to fly off to Venezuela. It made me... Yes, this season could have been better. It could have been clearer early on. It could have been stronger. Maybe if this was 2 seasons long and we were only covering 2, stories per season, this would be more impactful. But for where I was today, I really loved it. And I feel like being this close to the end, and now that I know there's only 1 episode left and that's all we're ever going to get of this story, all I can see is the good parts that might have been better in a different alternate universe or an alternate telling of it. And those good parts are really, really good. All of the acting is really, really good. The story is unfortunately too complicated, and as a result, by the time you get here, you don't have the information you should have to have it be as impactful as it could be.
Yeah, no, I think what you just did was demonstrate something I was thinking last night, which is, wow, if I were to describe this episode to someone, it would sound great. But I am bored. I don't care. I have not been built up to care about any of this. So yes, when Vince Vaughn has his meeting and goes through that little dance of death with Stan, is that his name?
Which one, the Russian or a
The
subordinate?
guy he kills.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah,
that
is I'm like, that is an amazing performance from Vince Vaughn that he is giving right now. I really wish I cared about this story. When you see that chase scene through the tunnels, again, I'm thinking like, yeah, this is riveting right now. I should really care what happens at the end. And man, when they finally shoot him, I think, man, if I really liked this story, I would be shocked right now and standing up and gasping.
Well,
but that was my problem, is I had not been prepared to care about any of this. I was bored. And so those elements work. Those elements like caught me for the moment, but I didn't care.
There's also and I want to speak in generous terms because I want more True Detectives to come out. And again, yes, you know what this is? This movie now has entered the same territory with that I hold the movie Primer with. I loved Primer. I watched it a whole bunch of times. I will be the first to admit it is a broken movie, and it doesn't really get good until after you read the Wikipedia explaining all the nonsense of it. And once you kind of get a sense of what all that was, it just lives in your brain in a much more positive light. I suspect the exact same thing will happen with True Detective. As I watched it up until this point, I'd say I'm really interested to see how it wraps up. I have felt like it has been too much, too confusing, and all the things we've talked about. But as I'm putting it together now, last episode we saw how broken everyone was, and we got the last piece of the puzzle as to how our female character was broken because of molestation or whatever. This episode was all about clarity and putting it behind you. You had I don't know, the guy and the chick hooking up in the hotel room, like we're broken.
My point exactly. The guy and the chick.
That's fine. I mean, put that on me. That's my fault because I haven't internalized all the names.
I don't think it's Velcoro and
Bezarides
and the other one.
But it's a guy and a chick.
That's fine. But they get together and almost kind of become whole in that moment and find peace. And Vince Vaughn finds peace in his rage and determination to screw over the Russians, steal their money, and leave the country. The person who does not find peace is Detective Woodrow, because he has not made peace with his sexuality or his situation, and that's what allows him to get run, as they say. And he dies because he couldn't find peace, and it makes me really curious. Like, to me, the rest of this show is a heist movie starring Vince Vaughn, and that's all I care about.
Yeah, I wish this series had been a heist movie about Vince Vaughn. In fact, I was thinking that last night. I'm like, I wish this series would have centered on Vince Vaughn's character. And I think they made a mistake in bringing too many characters into it. The central mystery is who killed Casper, which I don't think we'll find out. That is my sense now, is who killed Casper is a MacGuffin, and we will never actually know who pulled the trigger on him, because there are so many legitimate motivations for why someone would have wanted him dead for so many various reasons. And you know what? Part of it is my own. I'll put it on me. Part of it was my own expectation that the Yellow King part of True Detective Season 1 was so fascinating to me, and I loved the way they played with that I was hoping that would continue to be a metaphor. And we got, the guy with the hawk head who shot Velcoro. I thought, okay, we're going to get a drop of that. We're going to get a little of this layered on, and we never did. And even if they layer a little bit in the next episode, it's just not going to matter. That's not enough for me. So I am disappointed. Totally agree that there's been some riveting moments. Absolutely agree that the acting has been phenomenal. That these have been amazing portrayals of these characters, but just they never made me care.
Yeah, I won't fault you for that. If it didn't take, it didn't take. And even now, I am forgiving it in advance, not for what it is right now as I'm experiencing it, but how I will fondly think of and remember this, because I do like the choking, gasping, suffocating feeling of not knowing what to do. What do you do when you're an honest cop and you discover the entire power structure above you? You know, gubernatorial candidates incoming are part of a cabal, you know, in a freaking sex party mansion, and that you're just done for. You know, and even I actually found myself retroactively caring about what's her name's relationship with her dad and her former partner / lover and her sister, who's now going to have to go into hiding because they think that she was the one at the party who murdered that guy. I think it's going to live better in my memory than it does on the screen, and I think it's going to get an upgrade in quality to where it's like, I'm going to call it slightly, I mean, I don't want to do judgment on it. I don't know. All I can see is the parts that were almost really great in this. And the parts that were genuinely great. The performances were genuinely great.
Yeah. I wonder how I would have felt about it if this had been season 1. I really do. I think I still would have been confused, but I think I would have been confused in an intrigued way, and then season 2 would have just blown me away.
I could tell you how you would have felt about it. You would have felt about it exactly how you feel about The Leftovers. That's how you would have felt.
I don't know.
Because the Leftovers, there were parts I liked a lot once I got to know all the characters.
I think this is much stronger than The Leftovers.
Okay, great. I mean, and keep in mind, this is coming from a guy who's excited about season 2 of The Leftovers.
Which is also a kind of a restart, right? We're like going to a whole different area, it looks like.
That's correct. Yeah. We're going to a town that has never had any departed. And I didn't really start liking that show until like the 6th or 7th episode. And lo and behold, here we are in True Detective, 6 or 7 episodes. And now it's like I'm genuinely excited about episode 8.
I can clearly say that I did not like The Leftovers season 1, but I didn't hate it. I just wanted to like it more. True Detective has great acting, great cinematography. Like, it is a stronger show. It just didn't tie itself together. I'm holding it to a higher standard.
Yeah, fair enough. Shall we move on to, speaking of cops that hold our attention?
Yeah, real disappointed in The Shield, episode 10, season 6. Just kind of fell flat. Not much happened, you know. Oh, wait, that was before I watched it. Yeah, those are just lies is what those are. This had me guessing all the way through, and yet still able to have a Wagenbach love story unfurl in the midst of the declining world of Vic Mackey, of Shane Vendrell being sucked into trying to play both sides of the Armenian mob off against each other in a way that is only possible way for him to get out of it is to die. Like, he has got himself in a corner that he cannot get out of with his feet still intact. I don't know what he was thinking. And it's a classic Shane where he said something in anger to get back at Vic, and now is regretting it, and the only way to undo it is to put himself in even more danger.
Real quick, because it's been so long since I've seen it, what are the major bullet points of things that happened that you cared about during this episode?
Everything happens, Ryan. I mean, we'd have to just watch the episode. There's so much that happens. So Shane, remember last episode, told the daughter of the Armenian mob boss that Vic and Gardaki robbed the money train. Now he's trying to talk her out of killing Vic's family and Vic and Vic's friends, which, by the way, includes Shane, even though he doesn't like Vic anymore. So Shane has to run off. He captures Vic's wife and Vic's oldest daughter and puts them in a truck while he tries to hunt down the assassin that has been sent to kill them.
And this is he lies to them saying, "Oh, well, there's some work related stuff. I got to protect you, right?"
It's something Vic did. He doesn't say work related. He blames Vic. He says something that Vic did, and I have to protect you from it, which actually drives her back into Vic's arms at the end of this episode. Like, you see her trusting Vic at the very end of the episode. Most of the episode is Vic trying to hunt down or trying to use the picture of Aceveda to blackmail Aceveda, while at the same time trying to double cross the man who gave him the picture. So it's classic Vic where he's like, this is a bad guy, but I'm going to use his bad guy thing to try to get what I want and then punish the bad guy. And so I cannot accurately describe all the machinations that Vic Mackey goes through in this episode in order to finally figure out. I mean, we will spend the entire time talking about the episode. I'm serious. Like, folks, if you haven't watched Spanish Practices, I would be doing you a disservice to describe what happened.
No, that's fine. But I understand most of the people.
The top line is Vic tries to use the picture. Aceveda calls his bluff. Vic uses that to be able to get all the copies of the picture and the media disc or the memory stick. Goes to Aceveda, wins Aceveda over to try to get back at the guy that gave him the pictures. All of the while trying to figure out an angle to get himself reinstated. And at the very end, the most powerful scene and the most unexpected scene is when Vic's wife shows up unexpectedly at City Hall right before Vic's hearings to give him a little bit of support. He's about to go into the hearing. He's got weapons. They've said, like, hey, if you use your autistic children, there's a guy on the board who has an autistic child. Maybe that'll work. He stops. He turns around and he walks out. To everyone's shock, he goes and he finds the right arm of Pense. I can't remember. The guy who gave the pictures of Aceveda. And he has this dramatic pullover where he pulls the guy over, says, let me see in the trunk. The guy starts to take off. Vic jumps into the window, is driven for several hundred feet before he's able to knock the guy out. And now he's got the guy in the car and he's taking him in. We don't even know where. It's Vic Mackey. Could be taking him into Farmington. Could be taking him to a storage container somewhere. Who knows?
That is the beauty of Vic Mackey, is he is all action and instant decisions with a mind like a steel trap who sees all the machinations that we could barely keep track of. I'll tell you what.
Did you say machinations?
I see what you did there. This is where we really start to see the payoff of what, again, we talked about this back when you were on season 4 about how it's a slower season and it's the least popular of the seasons, but actually was one of my favorite because it's when you really start to see the middle game. When you watch chess, you have opening moves. Then you have your mid game, which is where everybody's threatening everyone else, and it's the end game that all of a sudden it's like, well, it's just gotta, it's just gotta wrap up, obviously this way or the other. Now's where we're seeing the massive payoff of having paid attention to the mid game as we enter the end game. This is the last season you're going into.
Yeah. And it is the last season of Shane Vendrell. He either ends up running the Armenian mob like behind the scenes, or he dies. I mean, there's just no other route for him out of this. How Gardaki and Vic are kept from having their feet cut off, one finds it hard to imagine. And Vic just walked out on his hearing of whether he's going to be kept and beat up a guy without really any cause. So obviously Vic Mackey always lands on his feet while he still has him before the Armenian mob takes him off. So I'm curious how that happens in season 7 as well.
Yeah, and by the way, when I ask you for bullet point summaries, realize that most of the people who are listening and excited about your reaction to it are like me, who have seen it long enough ago that a brief summary definitely helps to put me in the context so that I can go along for the ride of your emotions during it. But man, am I excited, and I know I've said it before, but I'm going to do my best to follow episode per episode for the last season for sure.
And that is it for Spoilerin Time, ladies and gentlemen. Please go to cordkillers.com and subscribe if you like these episodes. Go to patreon.com/cordkillers and help us continue to make them if you really like these episodes. And we will see you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.